Welcome to the podcast of It Never Ends. We've got Julian ends in the blue corner and Herman ends in the red corner.
Neither of
Who's
us
going
knows
to
what
win?
we're going to talk about.
We're here to freestyle this podcast together. Julian, tell us something you're excited about for this evening.
I can't.
Screw off, eh?
Stop.
Herman,
That's enough.
what's
Screw
your
off.
most looking forward to highlight? How do you think this is going to go?
I think it's gonna go pretty good. I think we're gonna go a lot of places, look under lots of rocks, and
Come on, I'm the center of attention here, so stop babbling.
So, for context, if you're just tuning in right now, we have we have dockets and dockets of documents here that Dad has written. There's stories of Russia, his time in Russia. Now these other binders are basically, you said, essentially in no particular order, just random stories throughout your life, and as well dreams, and as well just ideas.
Periodically I felt the need for being by myself, so I'd drive maybe 100 kilometers to find a pub where I didn't expect to know anyone. I would sit in the corner and doodle a couple pages for the fun of it. Russia was involved in 45 because that was the end of the war. In 71, Ursi and I tried to get into Russia. We spent some time in the communist zone, but were unceremoniously heaved out of the communist zone. Then we headed to Africa, because Africa seemed to be about the same distance from Berlin as from Berlin to Siberia. That was a reason for going to Africa, the distance. Returned to Russia in 1982 for an extensive trip across Russia. Tracked down my dad in 82, first time that I met him. Also met Albert the sailor and Maria the seamstress. I got lost in the streets thinking that the KGB was keeping an eye on me. I got lost. Damn guys, they wouldn't come and find me, so I had to find my own way home.
That's crazy. So, when did you start writing the most? Because there's a lot of dates on different documents here. Some of it is obviously documenting way back when, but when would you say in this archive the notes began?
I have no idea.
You don't remember when you first originally started journaling?
No. I'm sure you're going to find once a particular story repeated 3 or 4 times. I've never remembered what I wrote down. If the story was meaningful to me, it would come back to me, and I would write it again without ever looking back, whether I'd written it already or not.
I think one of the coolest things, actually, Julian and I just saw this, and we were talking about it a little earlier, but in many of the stories, you refer to a character named Knos.
Yeah, I wonder who he is, eh? You ever met him?
Strange feller.
Well, there was a very clumsy kid in South America. He was probably from beginning around the age of 7. If there was something he could trip over, he did. If he played football, he was like the soccer. He would run after the soccer ball, kick it, but he'd kick a stump instead and break his foot. So from a clumsy foot, which is called Knos in German, it became his nickname. So his name became Knos.
Knos. Secret character in the story.
When did Knos, like, I don't know, when did that kid stop, like, what? When did Knos end? Like at what point did Nos?
I think he kept stumbling for the rest of his life. I mean, once he came to Canada, um, first he didn't have the language, so he stumbled through the English language, making ridiculously crazy statements that he didn't understand himself. And once he knew a little bit of English and worked on a peat moss and on a fishing boat and build framing. He got the whim that he was going to become an accountant. He went and joined an office. The language in the office, the commercial language, was as foreign to him as the English language had been. So he remained a Knos in the commercial scene for at least 2 years before he learned the lingo of accounting, of commerce, of banking systems and such. And then he figured it was no longer worthwhile to change, so he remained Knos.
When do you think the last time you ever mentioned Knos in any of these journals would have been?
No idea.
No idea.
I could say, though, that much of this writing was driven by my sister. My sister was ferocious in me telling the story of my trip through Russia during the communist regime in '83, which was a very, very tense trip. And then she insisted I write about Paraguay. She had heard a little bit more about our trip across the Atlantic, the end of our time in Germany immediately after the war. I believe she had picked up more hearsay than I did. She was always in company, being taken care of, while I was on the hoof, running about in the woods and in the forests, and very little communication, no friends, it was isolation time. We were on the move through hundreds of cities, and never made a friend until way into being in Paraguay. That would have been, till I was 10, I probably never had a friend.
You have a lot of these dreams that you recorded, but do you get into the, do you talk about what's happening in your life at the same time? Because I also don't notice any years dated. In your dream, like these dream journals here, like you don't have any dates.
There were dreams there, but what you're pointing out there was I put the core of the dream, but then I sort of speculated about the beginning and the end of my life. I had some fun with my sister and Natalie getting a hold of me when I was really cranky, obnoxious on a cane and so on. They dragged me into the mental home while I was kicking and fighting back. And
This is a dream?
No, this wasn't a dream. This was a sort of fantasy. So they dragged me into the mental home, and the nurse, oh, what a wonderful, to see you, etc. And there was the band of young people singing to entertain them as I was being locked up while I was trying to break out. That wasn't a dream. That was just my playfulness. Mm-hmm. What is really fascinating is while I am at the image of a group of young Mennonite teenagers going to old folks' homes and singing and entertaining them. That image recurred in my dreams a few times. Fascinated me.
Do you write as if you'd been in places with Knos?
I write as Knos, not with Knos.
Okay.
As Knos.
I just got here, places we've been. Corteza.
Khortytsa,
Yes.
Ukraine. I believe Khortytsa, where I was born. That's where my mom and dad, I believe, spent the first period together.
It's interesting because some of this is written in German. Some words are German, some words are English. But it looks like you're documenting here all the different places. Maybe this is where you and Tante Frida had been. So it's interesting.
Frida created a detailed list of where we've been, including the villages and cities that we crossed through Europe that I actually never knew of. She gathered them from others.
This is the whole story. This is interesting. I've never seen this before. This is the whole story here of what we went over the first time that we did this, but just stage by stage. Stargard.
Stargard, Prussia.
Yeah, to Neustadt.
Neustadt would be Paraguay. As well as Russia, the the village names repeated themselves from probably Prussia to Russia and Paraguay. We'd all have a Gnadenfeld and Friedensheim. Those names would be recurring.
And you say here that you were traveling with the Ziegler family.
Ah, yes. They were a well-educated, well-to-do family in Russia. Once we got separated from my dad, the Ziegras took us under the wing for a brief period of time. I don't know where it began, but they might have been jewelers in Russia. They carried with them tiny, precious metals, artsy things, art creations. And I believe one of them, and I'm not sure that I should link it with them, but one of the things that was most precious was, in those days, smokers would have an ashtray about that big that they would carry in their pocket, that big. It would be in silver and gold and would have precious stones set in. You would flip it open, put your ashes in there, close it, and put it in your pocket. Something like that. In starvation country, you could get a wheelbarrow full of bread and food for it. It was that valuable. Anybody who owned farms, ranches, either got murdered, robbed, plundered in Russia and Germany. Throughout war territory. Nothing was sacred that people could grab or that the thugs, the robbers, would not destroy. But when you carried precious jewelry like that, you could buy anything anywhere. Probably would get murdered for it if you weren't careful, but they were a Jewish couple, I believe. And Mom has told me on occasion a little short stories about, oh yeah, we were with the Zieglers there, and yes, we could get something because the Zieglers were there. It appears to have been for a short period of time, but a valuable period of time for us.
Was there a deeper connection from home that you guys had, or was it just the timing was convenient?
It's just a name that keeps popping up that we were together with periodically, and I have no recollection of them.
Frida's writing.
They entered into our lives somewhere, and by 46 I began to remember. 45, 46 I began to remember a lot, and I have no recollection of me ever meeting them. But they were a travel companion for a while and very helpful.
Can I read this? Hey, Frida. For better or for worst. The boys and I went skiing. Bob reminded me of my dubious age for such a challenge. He did get me thinking, and more so as the days went on. I marveled at my jacket. We all marveled. It was 45 years ago when I bought it. One for me and one for Ursi. My pants are the same vintage. made me feel like a bride fitting her wedding gown for her 30th anniversary. Alternatively, they needed an 18-inch elastic maternity insert. I anticipated that this would be good. Smiling at the mismatch of my outfit and various supports for my extra belts, safety pins, and other straps, I stopped at a shop and was dismissed. This is an upscale store. I shook my head and smiled. This promises more than expected. It was a late afternoon of our first day, and the boys and I practiced on a gentle hill covered in gentle snow. Julian, full of enthusiasm, set a solid pace, with good speed but no edging or control. His skis kind of floated through the snow. Omar followed in a different drummer. Getting ready and getting every little detail right seemed like what mattered the most. Dad, help me. If you want to ski, you look after everything yourself. Fell on deaf ears. At one point, he had 3 strangers helping him. Julian and I reinforced our determination by walking away and leaving him. No matter to Omar, he caught up and promptly fell 3 times trying to get onto the T-bar. That also fazed him none. He explained at great detail to the gradually getting impatient attendant that it had not been his fault at all.
You can understand that, Julian, eh?
Eventually, Omar moved over to the conveyor, which carried him securely to the top, together with a few equally helpless. His spirit was not at all damaged, as he explained to the little ones how he had a sound understanding of these mysteries. He eventually made it down the little hill 2 or 3 times, so he said. We had become too impatient to wait and see. My lesson of the day: safety and etiquette. The second day started cool and pretty, with a soft, fresh snow. I studied the ticket board. Age 65 plus discount of $15. Age 12 to 15 discounted $20. Age 9 to 12 half price. How do you beat the system? Got to plan it. I bought a full mountain ticket for Julian and myself, and the kids' run for Omar. We skied the little run together, and I went off for greater adventures. In the middle of the long lineup, I began to study today's skiers and developed a progressive, broader smile. At least half of the skiers wore helmets. I mean hard hats. Are they going to war? Everyone wore toques attached to collars or jackets, as well as glistening goggles, creatures from a science fiction movie. Not a part of skin or flesh was exposed. That's so interesting. This was written in 2010. Myself, no hat, no helmet, no goggles, just one bush of white hair. One of my gloves dated back to 45 years, but I could not find the other. So I wear someone's green mitt. My jacket was also upscale 45 years ago. One pocket had let go, and I intended to fix it a few years back, and I will when I get home. For now, it hangs attached to one corner. The many cuts and rips are releasing a continuous flow of bird feathers. The black electric tape that I used to use to patch holes up with it, before the invention of duct tape, were curled up. Funny how only one end releases, leaving the curly like a pig tail behind. Since the invention of duct tape, I have intended to replace these curlies, and I will do so when I get home. As I approach the chair, I notice how my skis are at least a foot longer than anyone else's. Must have grown these 45 years. The young lady at the chair offers me a wide smile and slows. Maybe it's just my imagination.
It slows the chair for the old guy.
Yeah. I wave, I give her a broad smile, a smile she can at least see. She may think, for the last time. The chair is modern and wonderful. We ascend into the clouds and above, majestic and moody and powerful. Dimit and long. They combine 3 chairs. We go up and up and up, all the way to the top. The wind howls and bites. My collar is to my ears and freezing. I see the lady at the top rushing to see me off the chair safely. I'm impressed with the seniority I inspire.
Okay.
The snow is perfect, 4 to 6 inches of fresh, dry stuff over a softly groomed base. I run the mile or 2 without rest, and I'm surprised how my legs hold. Also surprising, is the nausea I feel inside between my chest and stomach, a result of the cool oxygen and detoxification, or something I just heard of. I find Julian and we look for Omar. Typically we can't find him, and so what? He's playing kindergarten. Julian and I are taking the big one run. He has the enthusiasm of a racehorse and largely ignores technique. It began as a lesson and ends as a race, and so it should be. Again, he demands, okay. Halfway down, I tumble end over end, as happy as I was that my legs hold reciprocally my sentiment trying to hoist 230 pounds of hard lard over the skis. I shout after Julian, your turn. As soon as the sound reaches his ears, he does a face plant, and we roar with delightful laughter. My nausea rises and ebbs. Omar comes charging, surprises us with his hornet's nest attitude. Where have you been? I've called all the staff and security to find you, to search the mountain. I demanded the hotel to find you.
Right, you did. You shut the mountain down. Go ahead.
You said, what the hell's with you? Did you grow up in the last 30 minutes? Omar said, I want to go on the big run, Julian. You can't even do the beginners without falling. Omar, no. Get my ticket fixed. You're taking me up. Me, if I do, you ski, or I shall leave you up there. Omar, let's go. That's it.
End of the story, eh?
I love these papers, and I want to read them, but I want to read them before we do this. I think we should just freestyle.
Yeah.
I think we should just freestyle, because these papers, I just feel like there's a lot of pressure.
I mean, the freestyling, look at a lot of subjects right now. The World War II between the communists and the Nazis played out by the ants in the Chaco. Touch on little stuff like that, where I saw as a surprise an army of ants marching zigzagging through the grass fields. They came from underground, cross, and then up a tree, and right beside them was another army of ants coming close and then veering off.
This is how you observed the Chaco?
Yeah, so I was watching. I was probably eight years old or so. So I was watching these guys and I was fascinated by them. So I picked up one ant and threw him in the other one, and their heads went up, their antennas went up. They looked like the Sphinx. Head of a man on a centaur.
Centaur.
Standing up like a centaur, sniffing the air, what enemy has arrived, and then pouncing down on him, chomping him to pieces. And then I put a cross between the two armies, led them together, and the war began. And
Between ants.
Between two colonies of ants. And I called one group the commies and one the Nazis. Go get each other type of thing, right? So I watched this going on, quite a slaughter, right? It got dark, I went home, came back in the morning to take a look, and there was a layer of dead ants, most of them dead. They were all decapitated, they were snipped, their legs snipped off. There's one ant, nearly whole ant yet, with one little arm fanning in the wind. I was kind of horrified at the death, at the slaughter of these two armies.
That's such a unique thing to observe as a kid.
And
to have orchestrated that kind of a massacre.
Orchestrated, yeah. I was both Adolf and Stalin, yeah.
It's been done to me and shall be done to you also.
Yeah, hey. I was just passing on what they'd done to us a decade before. Similarly, once in my lifetime, and I've never yet talked to somebody other than somebody from there at that time who has ever witnessed a major locust attack. Locusts are grasshoppers, big, heavy, fat, fairly large.
Like cicadas, right? Cicadas.
What's cicada?
A cicada is like a loud flying bug.
Locust is
a locust is something that eats like vegetation. It destroys vegetation.
Oh,
it's
Like
a
you know the
it's
story of Moses when he sends a swarm of locusts and it eats all the crops of the pharaohs.
it's a biblical story, and the they're quite heavy. And it takes the saying at the time, anecdotally, it takes 40 years for a herd of locusts to gather in small pockets all around Africa, the world. And when they begin to, when their wings begin to flap, and together they create a certain pitch, that's when they begin to rise all over. They rise, and the sound spreads across and gets all from the whole continent to rise higher and higher. They rise above into the stratosphere, so to speak, and they can stay up there for almost endless. Like they fly from Africa to South America.
they can fly over
Over the ocean. Yeah, yeah. And as they fly around the world, figuratively, sort of, they can rise high enough so that the turning of this is anecdotally, right? The earth spins beneath them, and they can stand up there and wait for the next continent to settle down. What happened, the way it occurred to me, I came out of the forest, out of the bush one day, and I heard a rumble.
How old are you?
9, maybe 10, maybe.
So you've already been in the Chaco for a few years.
For a little bit, yeah. But this this wasn't something you experience frequently. Yeah, I never knew these. I knew a single of these creatures, stragglers, and a variation of sizes. But this was one specific type of a locust. Coming out of the bush, walking into the village, I heard a little bit. I thought somebody is approaching our village, and it must be a very large group of wagons and horses, because the rumble was a constantly flowing rumble. I'd never heard anything like that. The horses were snorting and getting restless. Cows from the free grazing fields were rushing into the village, and they were all groaning and moaning, letting out sounds that I'd not heard before. Dogs were frantic, buzzing around. All of this thing became we all felt an irritation vibration setting in our own selves. Sometime shortly later, we were looking for something. Some mystery was unraveling. There was on the horizon, 6 inches, 10-inch rim, curtain-like, thin, almost like a pencil line up front, and beyond it was a dark shadow, and it grew larger and larger, as slowly that you could not see the motion, but periodically you could see that it had gained distance. And this thing was coming up. Everything was groaning, and everybody was restless. Everybody expected something unnatural to happen. As these guys came over ahead of us, they were so thick. There was such a mountain, such a cloud of them. They blocked the sun. By now, some of the older people had some inkling what we should perhaps do. They were overhead, and then they began to settle down. Somebody was saying, tie rope between a couple horses, cows, cattle, and have them run through the field so that the rope would pull down the grain stalks, and as they snap up, they would snap off locusts would fall off the stems, so we could save some of the crop. We worked quite frantically at it and didn't really help because they kept on they started as they came down, they were chomping at a ferocious rate. The peanut bushes were, of course, quite delicious grass, vegetation, green growth. They were gone in no time. Kaffir was slower because it's coarse, harsh, but by the time the cloud had disappeared, everything was flat, everything was eaten off. The stalks of the grain stalks, which is probably 5 feet high or so, it was just a stick in the ground. Everything on all sides was eaten off.
How serious was that for you guys?
Well, pretty serious because our crops were gone. The peanuts were at the point where under the surface, were saved for the moment, but the plants, the leaves, were eaten off, which we needed to feed our cattle. Part of that grew back. Kaffir, I think we lost pretty much all of it. Cotton, the leaves were gone, but the cotton plants, as I understand, as I remember vaguely, the cotton balls still matured. Stunned, slowed down, but some of that still matured. They came down and they laid their eggs, and my recollection is that they died, and there was a layer of dead locusts. You walk across them and just crunch.
Over top of their eggs that were going to hatch.
No, over their dead bodies after they had laid their eggs.
Right, but the eggs that they laid were going to be, they were going to become.
Yeah. They laid in the loosest of sand. The legs, their bums stuck into the sand. They laid their seed, and my recollection is that they died as soon as they had laid their seed. Frida remembers it a little bit different, but generally in that. So then the rumor is, okay, when the larvae, if you call it larvae, when they come to the surface, when they wake up and develop to come to the surface, they'll destroy everything that is left. So we ended up with or possibly through the U.S., we were sent some packaged stuff that we had to mix in with local stuff that we had to collect and then spread it. And as they came out by the millions, they ate this and pretty successfully got poisoned. And we had a double layer of dead locusts.
Could that serve as fertilizer? Then the dead bodies.
Good, interesting thought. Don't know. It would have been a short spurt of could well have done. Yeah.
I wanted to make an adjustment, just because we went through this story on the last podcast in detail, so I just want to make sure that we're telling fresh stories.
Sure, keep going.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to take it.
Was it to the locust story?
No.
Okay.
What about Paraguay?
But what story? What story? Because I also don't want to spend this whole time talking.
Well,
throw anything at me.
I just want to ask if you remember the scene where you first came to the Chaco. Like, you've had your travels through Europe, you've gotten on a ship, you've gotten on the next ship, you've had shipwrecks, you've been rejected from one spot, have to go to another port, then you're traveling with your ailing grandmother. Like, what was that feeling when you finally arrived to where you were headed? Were you like, did you take one look and you're like, I don't want to be here? Or did you feel a sense of calm?
No. It was just in stride, another new village, and no idea that this was going to be longer than the previous days.
There was no plan for that to be a long term.
And none that I would be able to perceive and develop. we came into a Mennonite home in the old colony, which was Mennonites that had gone down there from Saskatchewan. We stayed with them a very short period of time until we found a place in the new colony, which was made up of those of us that came from Europe after 45. Where we had been, the group that had gone down south from Saskatchewan, they'd been there already for a generation. They were well established as you could be there, yeah. We stayed there briefly, then we found this little house. They were saying, nope, we'll have nothing to do with Paraguay, we're getting the hell out of here. They moved to Ontario. We moved into this little house with two small rooms, and one was what we could call a kitchen, and a wood stove, an open plate hearth, little table, and then a second room where a bedroom. That's what the house was of. Yeah, tiny little thing. It was made of straw and clay, straw and mud. Mm-hmm. Walls and roof, all of it, mud.
So, there's a few things that I've thought about that I thought would be really interesting for us to talk about. And some of it's just kind of like about our childhood. There's other things I wanted to talk about in terms of things that we learned from you growing up that I thought would just be kind of fun to talk about. I thought there's a couple things that first come to mind, and Julian, I'd like you to
don't blame me for what you learned from me, okay?
Yeah.
Well, you're only entirely responsible. But it'd be kind of cool to, hear anything that for you has been significant that comes to mind. I would say there's like three things that come to mind the most when I think about impactful stories or lessons that carry with me. One of my favorite ones is when we were younger, you said, live a life that's complex but not complicated.
Okay, yes. Yeah. I love the idea. I love the image.
I have my way of understanding that, and like that is consistent with like a life that's complicated is one where you lie, you're unaligned with things and sorts of being a different person with your family, being a different person in your work, being having value systems that are inconsistent with each other. Whereas a life that's complex is a life that, you are you, but at the same time, and, a complex life is you could be an accountant, but you could be a cowboy, and you could be into science, and you can be into different hobbies, different interests, and they don't have to be these cookie cut, simple things, but they should be exciting, they should be slow, you should be dynamic in being able to do all these different things that overall develop your full character.
You could develop these two concepts really well on your own. What I had in mind at that time is if your life becomes complicated things, you don't think them through, you act on it, they set you back, you get crippled, you get harmed in the process. The complex things, on the other hand, if you get to know yourself fairly well and you get to know others, while you can be yourself, totally yourself, yet treat every human being differently according to who they are, what they perceive, what their perceptions are, what's constructive for them, what's destructive. You can treat everybody different. It's complex and still remain the same. That's not that simple. That's what I call complex, and I think that is something to be achieved. That's something worthwhile to struggle for. when you look at small children, you cannot treat them equal. It would be insane to treat them equal. Superficially, we say should treat everybody the same. Well, they are not the same. You raise your voice to one child, he listens. You raise your voice to another child, and it trembles in fear. It's not that simple. Mm-hmm. Be prepared for complexities. They're fun. They're joyful. They're rich.
Yeah, I think you were getting right into that. I was going to ask if you had like a story of any people in mind that inspires this thought.
I think let other people inspire you that way, and then give it back.
Could you elaborate on that a little more?
Yeah, there have been only a few people that I remember in my fairly long life who have said something to me which I think have changed my life. They didn't realize it was that creative or that substantial to them. To them, it may have been a throwaway idea, but I picked up on the idea and I thought, hey, there's a new vision of life. There's a new angle, and once or twice I walked away from that discussion half doped, thinking constantly for days, weeks, what that implied, and it never completely went away because it was so suitable for who I was, what I was doing at the moment, and what I struggled with for the moment. One was probably at the first year at university. Well, let's go back a little further. At high school in Aldergrove, I asked the teacher. I said, what is it that you guys are religious? You attend churches, and you have no problem with military service and police, etc., where you may be called on to kill people, execute people. My background as a Mennonite, it is absolutely inconceivable that we're going to join any one of those forces. So he says, well, your people are taking things so literal. You don't broaden your vision. The fact that he said literal, I took that word, I looked it up, I found a definition for it, and I began to develop what he meant literal, grew and spread across my whole life. Literal is not something to be struggled for. Literal means simplicity, that you just don't open your vision. You don't broaden your vision. You don't look at the complexity of other people. You just hold rigidly to one thought that you heard was shared with you one day, and you never listened to anything else. Goose Tree was this guy's name. He was probably Jewish and more philosophic than the Canadian soldiers, the Scotsmen, the Englishmen that came back from the war, and were all the rest of my teachers. I remember when Evans, he was teaching poetry, and one class after another, he looked at this poem, and it says, he read parts of it and says, look at that sucker. He's so heartbroken, so blue, etc. He wants to kill himself because his love went bad. Why the hell not kill her? That was the sentiment of my other teachers. Then you had Goose Tree, who just softly expanded the vision from a tight literal translation, definition of things, to a compassing organic world. Yeah. Right.
That's so cool that you remembered his last name.
Yeah,
So
it is.
You're so generally unspecific about those kinds of details, and I don't think I've ever heard you say his name.
There are only few impacts, I believe, that you have in life, if you pay attention, that actually change your life. Mm-hmm. And this was a life-changing moment for me. Having been, the rigidly uneducated, unsophisticated village life, families were destroyed, no intelligent discussions happened, just a drive for survival. We never had the luxury of thinking beyond survival. a higher culture, a better culture, actually has the room for ideas. And this guy was willing to share ideas.
For like, would you say that you were, I don't know how to ask this question, but it sounds like when he had used the word literal and you went back and looked up that definition, it had unlocked something in your mind. Like, how far into life do you feel like that had affected your approach to things? Like, maybe unlearning the Mennonite ways. What was that process like?
Because we never shared ideas with anyone during those years, up to that point, and well after that. In Paraguay, we had no exchange of ideas, philosophies, ethics, morality. Those were not discussed. The first 10 years in Paraguay, it was raw survival.
Right.
Fight off the locusts and the ants to save some of our crops so we'd have something to eat. So
but
really,
that almost makes it more difficult to name the thing, or like to like name the idea or identify the idea. Like, you're in such operation mode. You have your school studies, your Bible studies. You're not exchanging ideas, but you're being kind of spoken to or spoken at. So, like, it's almost more ingrained in your fabric. An idea isn't separate. Like, you came to Aldergrove and you had this exchange with your teacher, and an idea was something separate from your fabric. And then you had to kind of pull from your fabric, like, what, I guess, what is the literal? Or what does he mean by the literal? And then you kind of had to unravel. Am I making sense with kind of
no, very, very much so, because the hardcore, hard grain,
because these Mennonites,
at that point, which was hardwired, which is not just Mennonites. The Mennonites experienced it. They were reinforced by their own community. It wasn't just them, but yes, hardwired, and no luxury of thinking alternatives, playing with ideas, or evolving a value system that was more varied, more encompassing. We didn't have that luxury then. Once that concept of literacy, being literal, it nagged on me, and I'm not sure that it's ever completely matured. I think it's a lifelong process
of unlearning, of unlearning, and maybe unlearning isn't the right word, but do you, like, was there ever a time where you kind of stopped having those moments of being like, oh, that's my Mennonite, like?
It lasted. I must say that the fact that after grade 12, I jumped on the train to Winnipeg. I said, I'm gonna spend some time to see what the relevance of religion, spirituality, concepts of eternity, God, sin, and what that all means. That was driven, I would think, by Goose Tree to a significant degree, and the hardcore before that, which I never accepted the hardcoreness. It was driving me insane. That the traditional hardcore drove me insane. I was willing to go practically anywhere, to hell or high water, to get a clarification. It took such a short time at a Bible college for them to share a few more ideas, which you don't need to study all these. The writers that have written books that would sink freight ships, and they could have done that. They could have said all of that in a pocketbook. Kierkegaard, these guys, they wrote enough books to sink a warship. They could have compacted that into a pocketbook. At college, one of the teachers said, in this school, if you believe in miracles, Jesus' miracles, and have faith in the in the biblical miracles and stories, by all means, hang on to them. If you require them for you to be comfortable in life, that they give you faith, you can hang on to them. We will not teach them here. You may change your mind with time, but we will not teach miracles and supernaturalities here. We will teach you what Jesus taught, not how he impressed the public by going around and doing magic. I'm saying magic.
Yeah.
He did not. I said, wow, I don't need any more of this college. I can hitchhike home now. It's done. The whole Bible has just opened itself.
I was gonna bring that up because I remembered that you saying that in Bible college there was the miracle part, but then there was the other part that you mentioned in Bible college where God presents himself. Your professor said God presents himself in the language and the style that people
culture.
Yeah, the language and the culture that people can understand, and the climate, where people can understand them, because in every part of the world all of these different elements of their language and culture and climate played a huge role in their life, and therefore they would have different interpretations of God. And in Bible college, this was an impactful thing to me, because in my way of understanding religion,
I knew you would blame me at some point or other tonight for what I'd been saying, and here we go.
Here we go. So talking about the religion, so growing up, I definitely struggled with Christianity and just my religion, because I went to church and I think that I saw a lot of, I guess there were two elements of it. One is I saw a lot of hypocrisy, people saying one thing, doing another. And that just didn't make sense to me, especially because I was like, well, there's those people who, the pastors, and I looked at like the highest ranking people in the church, and I would just see contradicting factors, especially when I saw them spend time with them outside of the church. And I couldn't make sense of it. And because I felt like as a kid, like my mission is to try to live the perfect life, the perfect Christian life for God. And I just didn't see anyone doing it, and nothing really seemed to make sense to me. Things weren't, lining up perfectly, and then I saw, obviously going to a public school, seeing people with different religions, and then seeing their conviction in their religion, and recognizing they would probably stand 100% in their belief as much as I might stand 100%. And then at that point, it's not a matter of conviction or like, how do you prove it? If it's like, because, I felt like, well, if my religion's based on faith and theirs is on faith, well, then how do I differentiate? And this statement, this quote, this lesson that you said really gave me a lot of comfort in recognizing my relationship to God and religion, which is just like, I recognize that God is the same God behind every religion, but it's just learned in the way that the language can communicate it, the climate people can understand it through, obviously, the climate and their culture. So that's my personal relationship with that.
Yeah, just one slight comment. All of that accepting. Religion is a people with a culture and a language, within the culture and a language, searching for meaning in life. So the Westerners like us, Romans, Europeans, we found meaning in life through the philosophy of the Bible. The Bible being the first step towards finding a meaning in life. An intelligent human being goes beyond the Bible, which was the first book of exploration to find meaning and quality in life and in society. Chinese. It's interesting that the Chinese Nietzsche said that the Chinese language was largely based at a difference with the Christian because their grammar is in reverse, like the adjective and the noun and the subject noun is in different sequence, so that God, the creator, the sequence that we used in our sentence structure, it's different structure in Chinese, leading to a different vision of a structure of creativity.
Nietzsche observed that? Nietzsche observed that?
Nietzsche said that, yeah,
Said
yeah. He was a language analyst, was his profession. Linguistic historian was his specialty. So when he studied the other languages, he used the sentence structure as a route to understand the belief in the sequence of thoughts, the structure of thought of one's religion and morality. Ultimately, you get to the same conclusion, because all religions have ultimately the same conclusions, and that is, how can we create a better life for us collectively? And how can we overcome our basic anxieties, fears, and excesses as an individual? All religions have the same goal.
Now, when you think about things that you've learned or things that stick with you throughout your life, like what are some of the major lessons that stand out, or is there a quote or anything that stands out that you think about as far as like affects your, I don't know, compass?
I actually remember, I was thinking about this the other day. I can remember up until and I'm actually kind of sad to admit that I haven't done this in a long time, but maybe up until 5 years ago, I was still in the habit of every day looking in the mirror and making crazy obscene faces, and kind of laughing at myself in the mirror, and just looking crazy and eyeing myself up. And I think just being animated with me kind of came from just having fun with things and not taking things so seriously. If someone wants to get you all worked up or riled up, and I'm so guilty for
him, do you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know, just always finding humor or never letting anything be too serious.
You know, you go back to that one again and carry on. Before I forget something, though, you're saying not too serious. I wanted to sleep at 1:30 last night, and I couldn't sleep. I turned over 4 or 5 times, and I was ready to curse. And then I started laughing to myself. Okay, if you can't sleep, don't stay here. Get up and do something useful. Go, and then I made a cup of tea and started reading. But laughing at myself was perhaps like a prayer. It lifted me. I walked away from the bed, not bitching and growling, but I couldn't sleep. Making fun of something is not just goofiness. It is also lifting yourself, and don't get down over it. If you have an early stressful meeting and you can't sleep, you get very, very upset. Mm-hmm. But if you can have a laugh at it and then minimize the interruption,
or just accept the interruption too. Like I have those nights where the longer I stay in bed trying to force myself to go to sleep, the more frustrated I get, and it's like the snake eating its own tail. If I get up, I have a glass of warm water, I maybe sit on the couch, I look at a couple things on the coffee table, I look out the window, oh, sleep's coming. I go lay down, I fall asleep.
If it is stress that wakes you up at night, I'm not sure. Sometimes it's not stress. It's just that you've got an energy from what you've eaten before, something, right? If stress hits you when you're in bed and you cannot sleep, you have got to get up, sing a song, say a prayer, read a book. You've got to get your mind on a different plane. Scientists have said, and these guys came from India. They say you don't have to believe in a God to pray and have a prayer work a miracle on you. If you are stressed, tired, you go to bed. You're ready to go to bed. If you say a prayer before you go to bed, the prayer contains the basic components of a prayer. You will sleep better. You will be more refreshed in the morning. You'll have more energy. Proof that that prayer works. It's not dependent on God or Jesus. The Bible, if I remember correctly, and I think it says in the Bible, evil thoughts is what they say, right? Harmful thoughts, depressions. You don't like the neighbors, and they did you some harm, and you hate them. Hateful thoughts. If you allow them to get into your mind, it's like poison ivy. It'll poison your soul. The Bible says a bad thought is like a bird. It flies over your head. You can't help it from flying over your head, but you can help it not making a nest in your hair. That recently connected with me, just recently, that image connected with poisonous thoughts. You have to keep your mind clean. You cannot linger on stuff that you can't help, on poisonous thoughts. They have got to be eradicated, regardless how brutal. You have to remove them, and you can remove them. You cannot remove them for a short period of time. It can be a long, arduous battle to get rid of a bad attitude. If it doesn't happen, in Paraguay was an incident where one very aggressive pig of a guy had a neighbor who was a gentle fella. Every morning, the aggressive pig would shout at this guy, you wimp, you're going to have another useless day. I bet you can't even satisfy your wife, and so on. This went on for 20 years.
20 years?
20 years, reportedly.
The neighbor, oh.
This kind of relationship between the two farmers.
Got it. Sorry.
The aggressive pig got a habit of hammering, and tearing this guy apart. So one morning, this guy got up earlier, put his rifle on the fence post. The pig came out and opened his mouth, and boom, blew off his head. Now, because he waited so long, he was no longer able to recover. He went to the police station, to the military station, turned himself in, and was locked up. Went craven insane. Now, had he helped himself earlier, should have shot him, 19 years earlier, or else moved away or something, right? Interrupted whatever it takes. Don't let it linger. It becomes a habit of lingering. You get weaker and weaker, and soon you can't act against it. You've got all the excuses in your mind. I cannot. I'm not strong enough. I cannot. I don't have a way to survive by trying to stop it, and then it's too late. So nip it early.
I'm going to boil some more hot water, just for hot water.
Sure. So one of the things that connects me to is one of my favorite. So when we've talked a lot about the book Steppenwolf, Hermann Hesse, and I don't know that I ever told you about my favorite quote in that book, but one of the quotes that has stuck with me the most is on the topic of of having a sense of humor. I feel like that's a very powerful thread in all of our lives, between you, Julie, and I, and Natalie. And we're really big on laughing at ourselves in the worst possible situations. And in the book, there's
Glad
this
you
quote
see it that way, yeah.
yeah, in the book, there's this quote that says, he who can learn to laugh at all things has the soul the weight of a feather."
Really? I don't remember that, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was such a beautiful quote. And it made me connect. And I remember after that, I think I was in the States at the time still when I read it. And I just made this focus of like, how can I find a way to laugh at anything that's happening in my life and find a way to find humor in it and almost a sense of joy at it. And you always do this thing of creating almost, and I feel like I do the same thing, of having a caricature, like an image, like a picture in my head or a video, playing it through in a humorous way.
Interesting. Okay. And feeling light like a feather is someone may point and say, well, you're just superficial if you're like that, but it has only to, and you said it has to do with me. It's not that you see somebody else that is suffering and you feel sorry for them and start laughing at it. You were saying if it involves my problems and I can learn to laugh at it, that means I'm overcoming it, and I can feel like as light as a feather. It's not superficial, was my point.
Yeah.
You can't blame us for being superficial by being so.
Yeah. Well, it's not performative. It's not a performative thing. It's truly like being in a situation and not taking yourself so seriously. I feel like that's what it is. I feel like it's a matter of, okay, so say when I left the States and I had to basically start completely over in Canada in every possible way, it was really hard. But there were a couple things I feel like I did, which was like I found gratitude for the things that I could be grateful for.
Biggest value in life, gratitude.
And then when I looked at the things that were just plain bad, I just basically was like, yeah, that sucks. And, and just try to laugh at it. And it's a good reminder of it now, even thinking back on this sort of lesson.
Well, it's a big lesson that you learned very early. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to laugh it off.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, another person may experience a harsh reality in the middle of his life and not be able to overcome it. And for instance, in 2008, when the U.S. caused that massive economic crash, a middle-aged man who had bought a house in the States, had a mortgage on that house, lost his job, had to leave his area. There was no jobs in his area, so he'd have to go somewhere else. Leave his house. The bank takes the house. The bank sues him. He's got a $500,000 judgment against him, or $100,000, and he's got a hard time getting a job, any job, and whatever he gets only 10 cents on the dollar for wages. Most people don't survive that. That kiss of hardship lingers for the rest of their life. They can't recover. And if they have, if they have financial responsibility of a family, etc., they're in bad shape.
Can I tie this into another piece? something else that I had written down, which was, this ties into when you had a really bad sciatic issue in your back. And there was something you said that I thought it was really interesting and quite cool, which was, you had basically convinced yourself, because you were at a certain point, you didn't think there was a return from you. You thought you were going to end up in a wheelchair. And you had essentially brainwashed yourself to be convinced that you were excited to be in a wheelchair, because you had convinced yourself of all the things you would get to do that you would never make the time to do because you have legs and you can walk around. But man, if I lost my legs and I'm sitting all day, I'd get to read all these books, do all this writing, listen to all these songs. Yeah, and there's that song, Moonshadow by Cat Stevens, that I think that was an inspiration for you in that time as well.
If there's a song, ask him. If there's a song that, or a series of songs that reminds you the most of like us being young, what are those songs? Do you?
No, I can't reach. Say that more clearly.
If there was a song or a series of songs that come to mind that take you back to like us being kids, would you know off the top of your head what those songs would be?
One that rings in my brain quite a lot, and it always relates to you guys, and probably more to you, Julian, than Omar, but to both of you really well, is Nana Muscuri, Why Are You Crying, My Son? There's hardly one that impacted or affected me more than that, and I always love to hear it.
You know, I actually can't listen. I won't let myself listen to that song because the emotional connection. It's like anything Cat Stevens.
This is Nana Muscuri, right?
I know. Yeah. I know. Nana Muscuri and Cat Stevens are in the same camp. I won't intentionally play them because they're so emotionally overwhelming for me to listen to, because of how I don't know, I guess how deeply they bring me back to those times, or just
I find myself sometimes choking on songs like that.
And I guess it's also my way of preserving those songs because of how special they are. Like Moonshadow is a song that I remember having to make like a very concerted effort not to play, because I didn't want to wash out the sentimentalness of it. And the sentiment of it. And I feel the same way about Nana Muscuri.
Nana Muscuri's Why Are You Crying, My Son? It seems to me you listened to it once and you sang the whole song off by memory, never practiced it. I can't be completely correct, but we drove in the car, you listened to it, you sang along, and you says, I've got it. There's something that has forever puzzled me, how quickly you grasped that song. Mm-hmm. And then you performed it in the church the next day.
I did?
Yeah. I think so. Mennonite Church on Eden.
No, I did River to Pray. As I went down to the river to pray.
You did that one there, yeah. I don't know if I'm correct. I have had an inkling that that's one you did, but I know you did that one, yeah.
It's almost like I could recite every song on the mixtapes that Natalie would make and that we would listen to in the car. Like, it was always, I don't know if you recall this, but Natalie would make you little mixtapes, and you keep them in the car, Black Jetta, and we'd always listen to those time and time again. And it was CD the best.
With the big smiley face on it?
This is before that CD case.
Oh, and then we had that big book.
Mm-hmm.
With the pages.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, remember Natalie always put together music, and we always had that in the car, and she had really good music.
Okay, one of you said something about the way life was down there, and I like to parallel two anecdotes, two stories.
The life in Paraguay?
When Paraguay and Russia, two parallels, if you like. The life in Paraguay in our early days, we were a whole day away from any kind of store. There was nothing to be bought. We had to drive by horse and buggy for a whole day without money, really. But if we wanted essential, it was that much. There were no clothes to be bought. Only what they made themselves. We were parachuted into the hot desert. Our wells would periodically run out of water. Temperatures were 100, 140. Sandstorms were frequent. The sweat was ferocious. We've been talking about shoes. I mean, you couldn't wear shoes because the sand, desert, you'd have sand in your shoes. Your feet would rub into the sand. The feet would sweat and sand. You rub your skin raw. Your between your toes would infect in an instant, and the infections would. How do you stop an infection? So you would try and wear sandals where sand could, basically fall out. But of course, it didn't really do it. And if you wore sandals, you couldn't work. You can't pull a plow when you wear sandals. Your feet will sliding around in them. So you never ever had a suitable shoe. When I left the house, our house, and wandered into no man's land and the great pastures beyond our land. Never did I have a drop of water to take with me. I don't know whether we ever drank water. If ever, we drank something in the morning. All day in the baking heat and sand and sandy storms, we'd go without a touch of water. So you get back home, you can imagine if it happens to be that the watermelons were ripe, you'd come in, you pick up the first watermelon, crack on your knee, up and you wash your face with it, and then the bees and insects would follow you all the way home, and they'd be sticking to your face like bugs sticking to a motorcycle rider.
Yeah. I saw that like a cartoon. Like a cartoon little boy you with all the cartoon bugs smiling stuck to your face with the watermelon seeds all over.
Yeah. I'm getting to something more complicated than that. If you now vision, I mean, this was the experience of a young child who can bear things more easily. Now take a middle-aged woman. Everything that she wore, she had to make herself. She was sweating working in the fields in cotton and peanuts. No water to wash, to keep clean, to keep hygienic. No water for hygiene. All day long. Then come home and make and whatever else, right? So, rolling back, I'm talking Paraguay. Rolling back, the communist era in Russia, women were described as big, bulky, growing long hair on their legs, and carrying the wheelbarrows and bricks to the working stations and so on, while the men sat in the cars drinking vodka, cab drivers, and the women would lay the bricks to build the cities. I actually seen that. So the women with no protein, nobody had protein, but the women were the lesser of the fortunate to get protein. Carbs, bread, potatoes, hard physical work. The Russian women in Russia became, their health suffered really, really fast. men would drink themselves into oblivion, but they'd sit around while the women did the work. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, a dear Russian woman said, my most embarrassing moment, but she says, I'm going to open a museum of women underwear for the whole world to see. And she says, it's a horrifying, embarrassing experience for me. I had to fight through to actually do this. But I wanted the world to see how we lived, how depraved we lived. No underwear, working the hardest work, water being scarce, hygiene being non-existent. Transfer this concept to Paraguay. Fields, half a mile away from the homes, little well that periodically run dry. The water you'd have to fetch by hand, overhand, etc. If you came running back for water, and there was no plastic at the time. The tin buckets that we had had a very short life expectancy. So good old fetch me some water with what? With a bucket, but the bucket's got a hole in it. Well, fix it with straw. I don't have, comes to mind when you think about this. So a woman, girls in the field working all day, sweating, sweating, etc. Their burden was much magnified about how the men suffered. I just want to leave you with that thought. Imagine a girl having a period in a mile away from home and not having water or hygienic pads, etc., to maintain, to keep clean.
And they're worried about men? They're worried about the men.
No, nobody's worried about men. I'm only saying that when you say how was life down there, we always describe man's life. Yeah, we had to chop trees. Yes, we had to build houses. Yeah, we were also mobile. We rode horses and the women didn't. The women being half a mile away from home, picking cotton uninterruptedly through 140-degree temperatures, sand blowing, sand everywhere, between your nose, between your toes, and throughout your clothes. Without hygiene, the women were tormented beyond most males' imagination. And we talk about we having to fight insects and so on. Women had it a little bit harder. And I just want to make that point.
The point that you had made earlier on about the woman opening the women's underwear museum, was that just for context, or where did that come from?
That was telling the world that just being real, being historic. Not to complain.
Was that related to the women's experience in Paraguay?
No.
No, just separate.
No, I said I'm going to show you two parallels that aren't really connected.
I see. And who was this Russian lady who was talking about opening
a museum? She was a Russian in Moscow. She opened a museum in Moscow. She says, I'm going to tell the whole world what a fucking system we had to live through.
Yeah.
Blatant, hard-assed, perfectly honest. An uncomfortable truth is better than a comfortable lie. Mm-hmm. Well, you asked a question. This is one point I didn't want you to omit.
Yeah.
While I was riding the horses and beating the hell out of them to try to run them to death if they treated me badly, Frida was afraid to lead the horse by a rope. She walked backwards, afraid that the horse would step on her heel. She had a harder time down there than I did. I had a lot more pain, but that was a pain I got over.
I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about when we were in Toronto and we were talking about the stories of Paraguay, and we were with your sister Tanta Frida, our Tanta Frida. She doesn't have memories of Paraguay.
Really?
Really? Well, you remember the story. She didn't have many. She had the memory of getting you to punch those guys.
Oh, in Germany, yeah.
In Germany.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if she just said that though. She's got to have memories.
But most of the time was in the house. Like
don't know.
Nothing was happy for her in Paraguay. There were no happy moments in Paraguay for her. I climbed trees and watched parrots lay their eggs, and I counted the eggs. And when they came to hatching, I took 2 or 3 parrots out and take them home and play with them, chew peanuts and feed them. She doesn't have the experience. She doesn't have the experience of going horseback riding the way I, for instance, raced horses. More painful than it was should have been, but
it wasn't in the kitchen or with the women and being instructed here and instructed there. Like, you had a bit more freedom than Tanta Frida.
My freedom was 1,000%.
Yeah.
Hers was none. She was confined to a very tiny yard. Nowhere to go.
Did you recognize that much in your memory of being young?
You know, while I recognized that, I thought, well, she's got grandma. They got grandma's looking after her. It's a comfortable life to her, and I want nothing to do with it. It's their life.
You saw it.
I never contemplated it because I never stuck around. If my mom didn't ask me to do plowing, cultivating this or that, straight into woods, I could not stand the community. It was so fractured, so oppressed, so undignified.
How was the society in Paraguay? It's interesting. So I'm just thinking about the mix of people because, for context, we grew up in a town. We grew up in Chilliwack. We grew up in Vancouver. But you know, the societies are very consistent from place to place. You know, there's norms already established. But I'm sort of thinking a little bit about how, because you just said fractured, and then I tried to visualize what that must be like. And I'm thinking of Russian people, German people, Ukrainian people. I'm thinking of like maybe even like Dutch people. And then, you know, you're in a community of widows and their children, and they have all these different societal norms and laws that they've come from. Was there...
In the Chaco?
In the Chaco, yeah.
No, it was the same people that had all those exposures. They weren't different people representing each. They were all Germanic, Swiss, Dutch, German. There was very rarely was there Zawadzki or a with the Polish, which were by that time they had a Polish name. But you couldn't tell the difference between them and the rest of us. We're all the same people. When I say fractured, I mean that our souls were fractured, our spirits were fractured, were broken. To be thinking most of the day whether you're going to have something to eat is different than when you think of how am I going to party tonight? Where am I going to go watch a football game? You're not going to go anywhere. You're going to sit in your own yard with a candle that the wind might blow out, and you'll be sitting in the dark. You won't even be able to read or have a radio. Nobody had a radio. Nobody had a TV. Very few books and no electricity. You had a candle. When the wind blew the candle out, well, you would sit there without a candle. Still hot and sweaty, and probably not capable to go into the house because you were still sweating and you had, I mean, we didn't have linen to change. If we had linen at all, we had one. And that would be washed to smithereens in no time. So we never had anything to look forward to. I did because I was going to go. I'm going to do some stupid thing or other. Go climb a tree and eat a beehive. But the others didn't.
Do you remember what it was like? What your response was like?
Yeah, I do actually very clearly, fairly clearly. By that time, I had liked my horses and I had guns to go hunting with. Even though I did, I wandered on foot. It was the hardship was still there. I thought when I become a man, grown up, this life down here will be fairly good. Canada, I didn't have an image of it, so I said, I don't want to go to Canada. And then once my mom said, we are going to Canada, and so are you, I said, well, yeah, I'll come along with you. I got the excitement that I'm going to go somewhere and see something else. I'm going to come with you, and I'm going to take a look at Canada, and then I'm going to come right back again. So I made fun of it, and I had fun with the idea. Going to Canada simply was an experience and exploration, and excited me. And I'm going to come back.
That's so funny.
So,
and then you had your first hot shower and you said, I'm not going back.
Pretty much, eh?
Like water
Pretty
just comes out of the
much.
tap.
You drank the milk from the cow and had a hot shower. I'm not going back.
Well, I tell you why. I'm going to go back only if I can pull that pipe out of the wall and take it to Paraguay and turn it and have water in it. Have water coming out of the pipe.
Did you... I guess that leads into a funny next question that I would never thought to have asked you, but did you miss Paraguay?
No, I never missed Paraguay, I don't think.
You never missed Paraguay?
No, I've never looked at yesterday. I always looked at tomorrow.
I know, but as a young kid though, like you leave everything,
new elements.
You've described even leaving Paraguay, like you had a whole image set up of like what you were going to be like as a man, like what life was going to look like in the future. That then kind of got kiboshed. You come to Canada.
But I had nothing in that image that made it attractive.
Your guns,
only that
your
I
horses, you're climbing up the trees to look at the parrots.
I wasn't going to do that once I grew up as a grown man. You wouldn't be doing it anymore. I had, other than a sense of being independent, there's nothing in Paraguay for tomorrow. And I was very cognizant, probably when I was 40-ish or so. When I look at the calendar, do I look what I did yesterday and the day before? No, I want to see what is on my empty page for tomorrow.
Yeah, but when you have a quiet moment, say you're laying in the field, or you have like a minute, between you put your head down on the pillow and you fall asleep, and you're just thinking, like, you can't only be in the future. There has to be some thought of like where you came from or where.
No, I don't think so, because remember how I described Shakespeare when I came to Canada? I discovered Shakespeare before I could read English or talk English, and I would have a dictionary and Shakespeare side by side, and I would read Shakespeare and keep on looking after every second or third word in the dictionary. I didn't look back. Shakespeare, Chaucer was a little bit less interesting. Shakespeare was so vivid, so dynamic. And from that came, hey, look at the car the guy has over there. Look at the convertible. Look at the fellow with his girlfriend beside him driving in a convertible. Everything you saw was rolling, dynamic, or moving forward. You didn't want to go back for nothing.
It must have been intoxicating.
It was intoxicating, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem that I had to wait out 2 years on the farm to pay for the trip, another 2 years for us to get going before we could think of buying a home. I think it was 4 years. when we managed to make a deal on a piece of land, and then the following years we built a house gradually in stages.
What's crazy? Sorry. What's crazy about that whole in that story is something I don't know if you know about it, because I think I discovered this when we were in Germany. But Oma had, for Mennonite women, the widows, they were given a lump sum of money for if they were a widow. However,
Yeah.
Oma was offered the money, but she refused because she said, "Well, I am not a widow, and I will not accept money in false pretense."
You're very, very close. You're very accurate. If she had signed a document that she was not aware of my dad being alive, she would have been paid a massive amount of money. But she had by then heard that he was alive and Siberia, so she says, "I'm not saying it." She asked me, by the way, whether she should or not. And I was so certain that Mom would always do the right thing. "Mom, I don't want to be bothered with that. You do what you want to do. I don't care, money or no money. Do what you want to do."